You're listening to CBC Radio 1.
Oh. That's so funny. And back to sharing, share screen. And can everyone hear me? Yeah, excellent. Cool. Sorry about that unceremonious sort of ending of the music. I realized that there's no little button here for me to fade out the stream. So as long as everyone can hear me, we're all good. Thumbs up. Yeah, we're good. We're good. Thumbs up. Yeah, excellent. Perfect. So with that being said, we are going to start the soiree, the festivities for the evening. So with that being said, welcome to Jamstack Toronto. This is essentially, if I'm not mistaken, season 2. I was going to say episode 1, but I guess since we're all cool, we're going to call it episode 0. And on a beautiful Thursday afternoon, actually quite hot, with 1.7 billion sites available on the internet, we're just happy that you chose this one right here. It's going to be very entertaining, so sit back, relax, and we're going to have some fun here for some great people. Of course, we could not gather in person for obvious reasons, and this is probably going to be the sort of like modus operandi for the next little while. So I hope you are comfortable in this setting. We're trying to get as comfortable as possible, trying to refine the meetup stream with every meetup that we have. So that being said, if you ever have any suggestions, just let us know either through our meetup page, send us a message or whatnot. But we're doing the best that we can with this environment that we have right now. And of course, we're trying to have the best experience possible. With regards to little things like restrooms, you know the deal. It's, I believe, down the hall to your right, the little door with the hand sanitizer. Yeah, that's the one. So if you need to go, that's the one right there. If you still can't find it, I think you'll have to check your own blueprints for that. Now, as we like to do is we like to go off and list a few announcements. We didn't have that many ready, but there's one that I would like to share is that I believe last week, the good people at Google had this event called the Web.dev Live. It was a series of, I think, 3 days of 3-hour talks. Really good. A few that actually would have some very interesting content with regards to the Jamstack, things like performance and whatnot. So if you want to go check that out, definitely go do that. We'll send the information in the link, with a link in a sort of like a post-meetup email. Also, with regards to our next meetup, we are on the verge of confirming this. We've had some talks as usual, but it is the summertime. Some people have some time off and whatnot. But I'll go ahead and say this. I think we're going to have a speaker from the UK and as well some people from Norway. I'll just leave it at that. The surprise will probably come in the communication that we're going to send out as well in a post meetup. As always, we do have a code of conduct. We ask for exemplary decorum. And if you do not do that, we're going to get the bouncers to come down and unceremoniously throw you out the browser window, like Eddie Murphy in 48 Hours. So, you know, in speaks, we'll say, we keep it extra gangster. So watch yourself. Let me see, what else? A reminder that this event is being recorded. So if you do have some Q&As or whatnot, during the Q&A, if there's some stuff that you may not want to have come out in the public, we ask that you keep that to yourself, obviously. But like I said, it is going to be recorded. It's also going to be checked beforehand, before public release, making sure that there are no trade secrets being revealed. But with that being said, let's start the event. So once again, welcome. This is season 2. This is episode 0, episode 1, whatever you want to call it. And we're just glad that you could join us once again. For all the first timers, welcome aboard. For the returning veterans, thank you for coming back. Thanks for believing in us. This is the Jamstack Toronto. If you're on Twitter, you could definitely follow us at Jamstack Toronto. If you're not on Twitter, we ask that you get on Twitter so you could follow us at Jamstack Toronto. We try to share as much as possible with regards to some new details coming out from companies left and right that are releasing products. I think it'll be pretty entertaining. And with that being said, we're going to get right down to the meat of the programming. As usual, we consider all of our guests very special. but certainly today we are delighted to have a group of people representing a company, a great Canadian company that's joining us to talk about a lot of the good work that they're doing. That being said, we are being joined by the good people at the CBC today. We've mentioned this in the past. Oh, sorry, I got to move something here. Something just came up and blocking that. Sorry. So we've mentioned this in the past that we try to work with, obviously in this remote world, a lot of different companies worldwide. But since we are Jamstack Toronto, we are based in Toronto, we certainly do want to work with the local community as best as possible. Obviously, that also means great companies in the local area. And when we were in touch with, we were put in touch with the CBC, we thought it'd be a great opportunity to hear from them, a long-standing media corporation that's been around, I believe, almost 100 years, if not just about. And they're going to come and share with us some of the modern technologies that they're using in on their various platforms. As you know, the CBC covers a wide gamut of media. And in this remote world, it's very important that we feel that we get a chance to highlight some of the local heroes in the at our meetup. So with that being said, we are going to hear today from the good people at the CBC. And today's event, why is this not working? There we go, pardon me. In today's event, we are calling this APIs at the CBC. They're going to talk about how the CBC manages all digital content with GraphQL. Now, we're going to hear from a number of people today. Certainly the main speakers are going to be Xavier and Phil. But before that, we are going to introduce someone else from the CBC who's going to basically bring to us an introduction of what the CBC does, and that's going to follow up with the main speakers. So with that being said, I'd like to introduce everyone to Rob McGregor, pardon me, at the CBC, and he's going to talk about how they get things going. Rob?
Thanks, Henry. I'll share my screen. I have a little presentation. And
you should be able to bump me. There we go.
I think I did.
Awesome.
Everything's okay? Great. Just a quick introduction of some of the things that we're working on at CBC, specifically GraphQL. A little bit about CBC. We're a Crown corporation. Our mandate is to inform and delight Canadians with entertainment, news, sports, and we do this in a number of ways. Our content strategy is with something we call feed, watch, listen. Feed for us is anything text, image, short form video, content that's assembled. This content is typically assembled in our primary CMS. This is content that goes on CBC News, the CBC News app, CBC Sports, most of the digital aggregators that you'll see, Apple News, we share on Facebook, share on Reddit. This is a very large portion of our content strategy. Next is watch. Watch is our long form entertainment. So this is TV shows like Murdoch Mysteries. This is The Great Canadian Baking Show. Shows that you'll see typically on CBC Gem, which is our application that sort of emulates Netflix. It's an over-the-top application that can be downloaded for free. And all the content on the service is free as well. In addition to this, we also are one of the biggest podcast producers in the country. And we produce a vast array of audio content, anything from news briefs, flash reports that are retrieved through conversational interfaces. We have a number of radio stations, local news radio stations across the country, and as well as documentary series and entertainment series as well. So this is our sort of listen strategy, which is our listen content offering. So to generate all this content, we use a lot of different CMSs. For our text and image-based stuff, for the stuff that goes on CBC.ca, our news, sports, and entertainment that's consumable sort of quickly, that's in the sort of the feed. We use a CMS called Palopoly and distribute its data in various ways. We also use a product called the Platform, provided by a company called MPX, for distributing live stream and short form video. To organize a lot of this content, we have our own in-house interface applications. These help content producers provide correct metadata, categorization, and basically distribute content to aggregators and to the applications that we control. And so we have our own in-house interface applications for these. We also have a long-form CMS that's used by our friends in Jam to distribute long-form watch content. And then also a television schedule, which is just, it's something that's dying, it's sort of going away. But however, we still do have a CMS that provides schedule information for those who want to consume that. As part of our mandate, as a Crown Corporation, we want to provide as much information that's relevant to Canadians as possible, particularly in situations like COVID, where where we need to get information out. Our mandate is more than just providing entertainment or informing. It's actually something that's a public service. So any way we can get information out, we want to take advantage of. Again, it's our supported applications, CBC.ca, and all the places that pick up content from there. Our news and sports app, our Listen app, and our Listen web and app applications. We also have audio picked up through RSS for things like Spotify and audio content aggregators. So to distribute all this content, we have a very vast ecosystem with multiple CMSs, and there's a very large amount of content that we have to deal with on a daily basis, and it goes off in many different directions. And because because between all of our different content, we have very different forms of content, very different lengths of content, very different file formats, very different requirements. For instance, on Gem we have certain contractual obligations to provide a full length thing, as well as advertising. So with all this in mind, we find ourselves sometimes in a muck with a whole bunch of metadata that can be difficult to organize, and we're passing a ton of information off to developers who are developing platforms and applications for CBC that may not necessarily understand the context behind the data, or maybe don't want to go through 8 or 12 REST calls to build their application out. So the solution we came to was GraphQL. GraphQL allowed us to allowed our API developing teams to consolidate data modeling, do API evolution without extensive version controlling, the ability to very easily communicate what data is available as well through GraphQL visualization tools. For application teams, they have the ability to tailor their requests, which means they aren't overfetching data, which can provide a performance advantage. They can pull multiple sources of information in a single API call, which is really fantastic for them as well. And then briefly, just on sort of the future of where we intend to go with this. We want to continue to add sources of information to our GraphQL offering, help other areas within CBC digital products expand and use GraphQL. The more people who are using it, the bigger the library becomes, the better we all get at using it, and the better it all gets. We want to build audience experiences that capitalize on the richness of CBC's content, meaning application developers and product designers can take a look at the breadth of our content, and they no longer have to worry about the technical complexities of trying to bring that content to the audience. If it's, say, an article that also has a listen component, that also has some weather information, or maybe also has some information about scheduling. This is all sort of tied together very tightly in a single API call for a developer when they want to make an experience like that. We want to deliver personalized, relevant information to CBC audiences. We want to capitalize on the data management aspects of GQL to standardize and normalize our metadata across content, so that content looks the same, regardless of its format. We want to deliver the ability to rapidly test solutions by reducing development time. So GraphQL allows us to do that as well. And in general, harden our GraphQL infrastructure to deliver important, timely information to Canadians, and that's core to what we do. We have a tremendous privilege and honor as a public broadcaster that we are a trusted source for things like election news when major events happen in Canada. Canadians come to us, they know they can trust us, and we need to be there for them. That's the reason why we exist. We're here for Canadians, by Canadians, and we want to deliver our content as efficiently as possible. So that's the introduction. Thanks so much. I guess, Henri, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you very much, Rob. Can everyone hear me? Hello?
I can hear you.
Excellent. Excellent, perfect. I just wanted to make sure the sound was getting through. So thank you very much for that introduction, Rob. Now, before we proceed to our next two speakers, I just want to remind everyone that if you do have any questions, there is a Q&A area of the chat where you can actually post your questions there. We're going to cycle through them at the end of the presentations so that they can be answered properly. And once again, there's something else I want to say. It's going to come back to me. No worries. With that being said, we'd like to introduce our next speaker, and we'd like to bring to the stage, if he's ready, Xavier, who's going to follow up with Rob's introduction.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Henry, for the intro. Can you see my screen okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I guess you can hear me. Now let's talk about how we built our GraphQL instance. So as Rob mentioned, we have multiple CMSs. The two main CMSs we are using at the CBC for content management are Polypoly, mainly for text, image, and some media content, and also MPX for media content, so audio and video. And then we have our main REST API, which ingests the content from these two CMSs in order to provide these data to apps and web in a better and faster way. But these apps and the website should also pull the data directly from this CMS for some content types, and also from other sources like TV program guide, radio program guide. So they have multiple sources to pull the data from. So that was before GQL, GraphQL. And now this is with GraphQL. So the goal here is to make sure that the apps and the web have only one entry point to get all the data from the CBC CMSs. So at this point, you can ask, oh, what's the point? What's the point of like adding another layer of complexity? So to answer that, let's talk about what GQL is and what it does. So GraphQL is a query language for APIs, and graph is because the data you can serve can be represented as a graph. So that's why it's called GraphQL. So good things about GraphQL. So first, you can return any subset of fields that you want. So you get only the fields that you need, which means small responses. And you can also process multiple queries in a single HTTP request. So that means fewer requests to make by the client. And although it's strongly typed, which means the data that the GQL client gets like they know what to expect. They know this field will be a string. They know this field is an object. They know the properties of this object. So they know what to expect when they make queries. Next, so let's see a quick example how GQL works. So first on the server side, we define our data model through what is called a schema in GQL. So you can easily do that by describing your object. So you can say, for example, I have an article. It has three properties: ID, headline, and list of authors. And what is author? Then it's another object we can define this way. So we can say that this object is a custom object with three other fields. So this is how we describe the schema, and this is what our teams use to build GQL queries. And this is an example of queries that you can send to GQL. So here we have two queries embedded in a single HTTP post. So the first one is used, for example, here to get just the headline of a specific article. So when you give the ID of the article, you will get just the headline. And the other one is to get two fields from author by name. And these things are called query arguments. Well, in this case, I have only one argument, but we can have more, and we can have more complex queries. I can show you later. About our technical stack, so our GQL implementation is using Node. Now we're using Node 12. We use the Apollo GraphQL server, so it's just a Node dependency. For our tests, we use Jasmine and Mocha frameworks. For CI/CD, we use Bamboo and SonarQube, which provides a linter for JavaScript and code coverage analysis. Deployment, so it runs on Docker through OpenShift. And for the infrastructure, so it's hosted on Amazon Web Services through our Akamai CDN, mostly for caching purposes. And then lastly, for the reporting, we use Kibana for the logs and Sentry for the error reporting. So when something goes wrong on prod, it will on the fly send alerts so we can get notified by email or over Slack. So now let's talk about our architecture in detail. So as we said, we define our data model through the GraphQL schema. So this is what the GraphQL clients see. They see only the data model. And then based on this model, they can build their requests. So this is what will come in here from the top. So our Apollo GraphQL server will receive the requests, will validate the requests, and each valid query inside this request will be passed on to our resolvers. And each resolver will be associated with a specific data source API. So at this point, you may ask, okay, what is a resolver then? Glad you ask. Next step, let's see how a query resolver works. So as we said, our Apollo server will send a query to our resolver. So what we get is the type of query and the list of arguments. And then this resolver will use these query arguments to build the full URL and the query string to use to fetch the data from the appropriate API. And then this URL will be sent to the fetcher that will fetch the data from the source API. And at this point, our fetcher will have the API object required to send back the response. And then we can optionally ask a transformer to transform the API object in the case where the GQL model doesn't match the API data model. So we can transform the object to get a proper GQL object matching our schema. And then we just send back this GQL object to the client. So let's talk about the tests. So we implemented 3 kinds of automated tests. First kind of test is the usual unit test you all know. So we call individual functions with other functions or script being marked possibly. And then we have integration tests. So for these ones, we send complete GQL requests with multiple queries, and we mark the source APIs. And then lastly, we have end-to-end tests. So again, for this one, we send complete GQL requests, but this time we hit the real source APIs. So for the 2 first types of tests, these are required to build, so they must pass to create a build. And the last one must pass to release new features. So what we came up with, so after 1 year of development and 1 year to get adopted by all the teams, GraphQL is now used by the apps and the website, bringing many improvements for our teams, but also for the audience. For example, smaller payload size, which means usually better performance, especially for mobile devices. Henry's for fun. I just took a screenshot yesterday of our CI/CD pipeline. So this is the SonarQube plugin that will tell you how many bugs, vulnerabilities, and code smells you have, code coverage. And also you can see that our app is really small right now, 3,000 lines, which is good because it's easier to maintain. So yeah, I'm pretty happy about these numbers. So let's see how it works. So this is what we call the playground, GraphQL playground. So it comes with our Apollo server, so you don't have anything to build. It's just a web UI that comes with the Apollo server, so it's only internal. So it's like a browser in your browser if you want. This is just a web app. And so what it does, it will help you build your GQL queries. So here on the right, you can find the list of queries that are available to use. So for example, if we pick this query, it will let you know, okay, if you want to use this query, you have to use these arguments. And this is what this query will return, and it will help you understand what each field means. So you have a lot of details here. So yes, let's try something. So let's say I want to get stories. So you can start like this, and it will help you find all the queries that are available. So if you do that, it will tell you, okay, if you want to use this query, here are the query arguments that you can use. So let's say I want to find content by type, and I want to find all the stories. And at this point, it will tell me, okay, what do you want? So you can get the total number of stories, or you can get the stories themselves for the content itself. And then again, for this node, for this item, we can pick the fields we want. So let's say I want to have the title and list of tags. So tags in our schema is actually an object. So it will, if I start opening the bracket, it will tell me, okay, this is an object. Here are the possible properties. So I can add these two properties and file a request. Okay, just because it's demo, it will take a while, but there you go. So you have a list of content, and for each content, we have exactly the fields that we requested. So this could be, here we can have multiple requests, multiple categories, and then each query can be from any kind of data source. We can have this query getting content from CMS A, and then this one from CMS B. It doesn't really matter. So the last thing I wanted to show you is this thing, which is called a GraphQL Voyager. So you're not going to see very well. It's just to give you an idea because of the resolution I have right now. But basically, it will help you explore your schema. So this is our GQL schema. So for example, if you click on a given type, it will show you what the type is and what the different properties are. So you can click and browse through your schema and discover all the data that we have just like this and build your queries based on this graph. So that's pretty much it. So thank you. Now let's hear from Phil from the web team to know how it is to use this GQL endpoint.
Thanks, Xavier. I hope everyone can hear me. Yes, thumbs up.
Yes, we can.
Excellent. I always, every meeting that I'm a part of, I always attribute that to clacking tongs before you start using them. Like you have to clack the tongs first before you can start using it. Same thing with any meeting that you're a part of that's apparently virtual. You got to ask, can you hear me? Can you see my screen okay? So I'm glad that we've gone through that informality. So yes, my name is Phil. I'm from the web platform team here at the CBC. We are a Node.js app that's server and client rendered. It's a React application. Our stack is very similar to what you saw on Xavier's screen in terms of, we have caching redundancy layers built into our apps, and we deploy using the same setup and deploy to the same locations. So I'm not going to bother you guys or bore you guys with that too much, but we on the web platform team, we're just one team of many that contribute to a mono repo that powers the CBC.ca website. We have other teams such as Web Experience, which is focused on the UI of the website and delivering great user experiences. We have a web player team, for example, that is specifically focused on those short form video experiences and delivering that video experience to our audience. And then we have ads integration, for example, who kind of tailor our advertising so that, the CBC can make a little bit of money. And we're a site that's visited by millions of Canadians daily. And something that Rob alluded to earlier is that millions of Canadians, it doesn't discriminate. It's Canadians in Toronto or up north. So you may have the best, gigabit Ethernet connection, and you might have a very slow 3G connection up north. We strive to deliver the best experiences that we can to Canadians all over Canada, so, and abroad too, because they visit it from everywhere. So the web platform team that I'm on, we're more focused on the performance side of things and code health and stability of the platform. So we'll look at things like JavaScript execution time, caching strategies, bundle sizes, things like that. We use both synthetic testing, so things like Google Lighthouse reporting to determine how well our site is performing in a lab, as well as real user monitoring to know how our users are experiencing our website. How long is it taking to load a page? What's the experience like depending on what type of page you're looking at? The different allowances for the type of page you're browsing. So we look at things with the eye of perceived performance, and we'll tailor it depending on the type of page you're browsing. So you might be on a landing page that has a number of stories from top to bottom of the page. We probably we value interactivity as a metric that's most important for those types of pages, because people are generally scanning those pages and then looking to click on something to get to more detail about what it is they're clicking on. Whereas that story type page, because we tell stories at the CBC, that one is probably a bit more, we're looking at performance around how quick does that page come onto the screen. Not necessarily interactivity, because we're expecting users to potentially come to the website, just read the content. It's not necessarily clicky. So we take all that stuff into consideration. And then we also strive to be good internet citizens by ensuring that we're delivering only the minimal amount of data needed for the experience being consumed. And that's where GraphQL is a super big help to us. GraphQL on CBC.ca has been a rather new venture for us. We've been slowly iterating on some of our smaller calls to get a feel for what it's like and to validate how much savings that we're going to get. We're currently in the process of migrating all our API calls to GraphQL. You've seen the number of CMSs that we interface with, and it's just it gets cumbersome to have to manage, one API here, one API here. They've got different response bodies. We need to normalize all that data on our side, and it gets very, very cumbersome. So GraphQL has been great for us so far. In fact, the local news page that we have that's available at cbc.ca/news/local, that was the first page that we tackled to make the complete switch to GraphQL. And I hope that everyone can see this, these screenshots, but before GraphQL, hitting our CMS directly was returning us a pretty big size of body. 628 kilobytes uncompressed. Over the wire, it comes down to 74.7 gzipped. And then switching to GraphQL made that come down to 4.4 kilobytes gzipped, 95% smaller. And you can imagine that that's going to have a great effect on mobile devices. There's just a lot less data that you're having to download. And now it allows us to focus on more of the application performance that we can improve upon to make the website a little bit more responsive and quicker. Coming soon, we're going to start transitioning our story pages to GraphQL as well. We pull from multiple sources, so we get trending data from our Chartbeat APIs to tell us, what are the hottest articles that people are reading. We have APIs for recommendations. And so being able to combine all these into one request is going to be pretty cool. We have really large payloads that we'd love to bring down to, I'm not sure if it's going to be a 95% drop, just like that news local page, but we're hoping, we can hope for the best that will come up. And we have to contend with the fact that some stories are longer than other stories. They have different types of content. So we just want to optimize for that. And then following that, we'll have our landing pages. So we'll generally these pages are comprised of multiple API endpoint calls. If you think of the CBC.ca homepage, we have a block of section at the top of the page that's curated that comes from one lineup. We have a CBC News swim lane that's just dedicated to CBC News stories. What else do we have? We have local news stories, everything that's just coming from different APIs, and the ability to just pack those all together into one request, and also reduce the number of fields being returned back, because that's generally where all the data comes from. That's going to be a huge win for us. So we're really looking forward to that. We're hoping to have a lot of this done over the next 2-3 months, I think, is what we're aiming for. So fingers crossed that we can do that. And I think that's it for me. Yeah. Henri, I'm going to pass it back over to you. I see you're on mute and you have your H logo there, so I'm going to kill some time. Maybe we have Medeea who wants to say something. Oh, this is the awkward transition point.
Hi, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well. I know that we had planned to take some questions as well at this point of the webinar, so we will have an opportunity to do that as well. I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Medeea. I'm part of the recruitment team at CBC, and I strictly support the digital products department, of which everyone here is a part of. And I did want to let you all know that we do have a GraphQL position available, so I wanted to talk to you guys about that. I will share my screen if that's allowed, or thank you very much for putting that up for me. So as you can see, there's the information in case anyone is interested in checking out the position that we have available. We are hiring for 2 actually, so you can see the position ID number there on the screen. And what we're essentially looking for is somebody that is very innovative and is seeking a chance to collaborate and grow and learn from the team. And you want to contribute to the future of the CBC and to the way that Canadians access and engage with the CBC content in a tangible way. So this is a great opportunity to be able to do that. If you don't mind switching to the next slide, please, that'd be great. My last point that I wanted to make is about our diversity and inclusion stance. So as you've probably deduced, CBC is a huge organization that seeks to represent our Canadian culture in every way possible. And of course, diversity and inclusion are at the forefront of what we seek to do and to bring about in our community. So it is a huge part of our 2020 strategy. And of course, we're very aware that we can't connect with Canadians unless we have a workforce that mirrors what that community at large is made up of, and it's ever changing. And so we value equal opportunities in all of our roles, all of our postings, and we nurture an inclusive workspace. So that is a key point for us. I wanted to make sure that everyone is aware. So if everyone is interested in the GraphQL role, I would definitely encourage you to go online and to read the job description and apply. And I would be the recruiter for that. So we get to chat if we get to that point. And that's it for me. So thank you so much for being attentive. And if you have any questions about recruitment or about GraphQL at CBC, please feel free to use the Q&A option in the Zoom panel down below. Thanks so much. Bye, everyone.
1 2 1 2. Can anyone hear me? Hello? Oh, you can hear me. Okay. So I'm not sure what happened right there. Phil, first of all, thank you very much for that presentation. And secondly, I wouldn't even say secondly, I'd even say 1B. Thank you very much for that very smooth transition, because I was sitting there hitting my keys going, hello, hello, hello. No one can hear me. So you were very expeditious. You must be a TV person. Oh yeah, the CBC. Anyhow, with that being said, as Phil mentioned, we shortly after, well, right after his presentation, we were certainly open for Q&A. Now, I do believe there was a question in the Q&A section that was also answered by Xavier, I believe, which was something around the CI panel, and Xavier dutifully answered that. So thank you very much, Xavier, for that. Since I don't see anything else, I'm going to ask a few questions myself. First of all, for Phil, it sounds like, well, you had mentioned early on that you definitely, your team does spend a little bit of time on the performance side. And now for the Jamstack community, we are quite familiar with performance. A lot of people do sort of religiously look after their Lighthouse score. was there something in the past that brought the team to the realization that, you know, you guys had to spend a lot of time on performance?
I don't know if it was one thing that has happened in particular. I think just the fact that Canada's so huge, and maybe there wasn't that love given to the performance side of things. We had spent so much time, you know, doing our best to deliver great experiences over, you know, whether it be television, radio, or web. But, you know, when you look at how the web is changing, I think it's always important to look around, and yeah, we're fortunate in Toronto, I suppose, to be able to have, you know, pretty good internet speeds down here. But there are, you know, and we hear it from our audience feedback quite often about, you know, sluggish experiences up north, you know, not with just CBC.ca, but internet in general. So being able to reach those Canadians is very important to the CBC. I think Medeea touched on it as well in her presentation there, where you know, we're diversity inclusion, it's internal, but it's external as well. So we want to be able to include everybody as part of that CBC experience.
And as you had mentioned that you saw a significant payload decrease, so having to deal with, you know, being in Toronto, but also having, say, you know, listeners in Sudbury and Thunder Bay and whatnot, and you're getting information back from your users, that must have been like a massive win.
Yeah, I mean, we have our real user monitoring, which we have a dashboard set up, which kind of shows us those metrics, those perceived performance metrics that we like to stay on top of. And so being able to tailor it to that page and just watch that reduction in terms of, you know, interactiveness on the page or first paint, that was, you know, it's a feel good thing. And, you know, just trying to do our best to get, you know, the best and quickest responsive experiences to the audience is, you know, our number one priority.
Although the thing that happened is before we had our first version of the API, we had only one use case. So we added a few fields. Everybody was happy about it. And then we added more fields to answer more requirements, and then more fields. And over time, we saw the payload getting bigger and bigger. And we couldn't really remove some fields because we had like multiple use cases. So we saw the opportunity in GQL being able to send only some subset of fields to, depending on the use case and the client. We saw that opportunity.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you very much for that. So now I saw some questions just come in. I have a question here from Adrian. Let me see, where was it here? Oh, how do you handle authentication and authorization in GraphQL?
So for this one, we actually don't have authentication and authorization for now. All the requests are public. So for now, we don't handle mutation. We don't handle, basically internal requests or authenticated requests. We don't have that for now. We plan to, because at some point we want to use GQL for membership and SSO. So yeah, at this point we'll have to handle authentication.
Yeah, right now, like our content, everything that's inside of GQL right now, which is CBC content, is freely available to all Canadians. So it's
Do we have a dedicated GraphQL team dedicated to CBC? And if so, how many team members? So as we said, we have the content distribution team. So we have around eight or nine people on the team. So we all contribute in the GQL code base. So in this team, we have multiple products, but GQL is one of the main products. So I would say about 3 or 4 devs, one architect for this product.
I see a question about the load on election night by somebody named Christopher Berry. Hi, Christopher. Thanks for joining us today. The election night was huge. So our CBC.ca application has at least the experience that if you go and visit it today, it's been around for maybe the past 3.5 years, available to the audience. And so election night was our biggest, up until COVID-19, unfortunately. election night was our biggest amount of traffic to our website in a single day, I believe. I think we were seeing at some point 500,000 concurrents on the website, and we were quite impressed that we were able to sustain that. And I think a lot of that goes with, you know, great caching strategy, redundancy with the CDNs to be able to handle that load. So it was quite a night. Thank you for your question.
And if you don't mind, I'll take the next one. How do you manage growing demand? Do you find cloud and Kubernetes deal adequately with on-demand load? So for now, yes. So right now we're using 5 pods, each pod using around 100 megabytes of memory and around 200 millicores CPU. So right now it's pretty well scalable, I would say. We have a lot of room. We only use 5 pods and we can go up to 30, and we don't even use half of the pod resources. So yeah, I think we're ready to scale. We have a lot of room. Yes, so yeah, the answer is yes. I think this solution is fine. The next one, can the public use GQL API? When I went to CBC.ca/GQL, I couldn't access it. So for now, you can. We don't prevent people from using it, but we don't help people using it in the sense of we don't expose our documentation, we don't expose our schema. So if you find a way to use the queries that you see on the website, you can, but we also have a few features to prevent overusage of it. So we have features coming from, provided by our CDN, Akamai. We have a web application firewall. So if we see that one client is making too many requests, then you will be throttled down. But basically the answer is yes and no. Maybe I'll let, yes, not as easily, I would say.
Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, a million apologies. I don't know what happened there. So I had some kind of crash that out of nowhere set my computer spiraling. So
we got this covered, Henri, don't worry about it. We're good.
Okay, so let me just unplug. No,
yeah.
Terribly sorry about that. So I missed the last question. The last part's the last question from Rob. So I don't know if you've gotten into a new QA question right now.
Yeah, we were answering a few questions that arrived. So the new one, did your team hire folks with GQL experience, or did you provide training? So maybe Medeea, maybe you can say a few words, but yes, we're hiring GQL developers. Maybe, yeah, I'll let Medeea maybe talk.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much. We are looking for somebody that does already have experience with GraphQL. It doesn't have to be super extensive, but should be at least a year or a little bit more than that to be able to contribute to the team, you know, from the moment that they join. But definitely looking for somebody that does have an interest in growing and furthering the skills. That's always welcome. So if you do have some sort of experience with GraphQL, but would also like to deepen your skills, of course, that's welcome, but definitely looking to have some sort of experience before we can proceed with a candidacy.
Awesome. We have another question related to this one. I don't know if you can see the question, yeah, but we have another one. For the GQL position, are you open to bring someone who is still new to GQL but shows promise in learning new technologies? Or is it a more senior role?
It's pretty, I assumed I answered both questions with the same answer. So yes, we are looking for somebody who has a little bit of seniority with GraphQL. It's a full stack developer role with GraphQL as an add-on. So if you do have experience as a full stack developer and do also have experience with GraphQL, then this is the type of profile that we're looking for. Like I said, we are open to entertaining someone who's not as senior in the position, doesn't have to be crazy extensive experience in GraphQL, but some is required. So I hope that was clear. If not, of course, I would be happy to answer any more questions about that.
Excellent. Now, I'm not sure if this was covered at all, but since I do have Medeea here, even though this is the CBC is a national brand, a national company, but you definitely are hiring in the Toronto area. Is that correct?
Yes, that's
Excellent.
correct. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Because we may get people from various parts of the country tapping in, or the information might start to travel through emails and whatnot. So I just want to make sure that everyone did know that. Now, I'd like to. I don't see any more questions. There are a couple more I'd like to ask myself. Let me see. I wrote some of these down. Boom, 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 boom. Oh, as a media, well, I mean, news company. And you deal with a lot of media from, you said, being the #1 podcast, I believe, platform in the country. I'm sure you deal with a lot of video. What is it like having to manage some of the media, video, images, audio on your platform?
Yeah, I can start to take that. Number one, every form of media has different requirements. Number two, every form of media somehow, in some way, in most ways, fits a similar profile. For instance, a podcast will have, a start, it'll have a name, the basic metadata profile is something we can deliver very easily and should do congruently between media types. Of course, there are massive nuances as you get into, image rights control, DRM for audio, DRM for video. There are advertising platforms as well, because we do advertise. So there are those considerations as well. Of course, journalistic standards and practices are also something that we take very, very seriously. As an objective news source, we need to make sure that we remain objective, and that our content honors that objectivity. So we do carefully monitor that. This is done by a staff of, a very large staff of content producers and editorial folks. So it's hard without getting a very specific question about a very specific type of media to pin things down. But absolutely, there are incredible nuances with every media type, and then of course there's also nuances with where they're delivered. So there's also the considerations of where this piece of information is going to go, and whose hands it's going to be in, and what contextual experience they're going to be viewing it in. So those things all go into pretty much every decision we make, heavily into the data management side, and also heavily, I would say even more heavily, into the product development side as well, so, and the experience development side.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. I do have a question that apparently might be for you as well. Someone anonymous has asked, what lowest version of IE do you support?
Ooh, fun question. Yeah, so I don't think we support IE anymore. I think we tossed it to the curb. I think it's just, where the web is going, and we want to try and deliver the best experiences we can. And yeah, I don't think you can deliver amazing experiences with IE 11, unfortunately, but I think we still support like early versions of Edge, but I think that's as low as we go from the Microsoft side of things.
Yeah, I mean, IE was dropped by Microsoft themselves, so I don't think they expect anyone else to do otherwise. I do have a question here that's, let me see, from Adrian as well. Do you offer remote work for the full stack GraphQL role during and after COVID? So certainly after COVID, would that be a remote position?
So I can take that one. So of course, during COVID, we're all working remotely. There's really no reason for any of us to be in the office to keep things running. Prior to the COVID situation, we did have a 1-day work from home policy for the department. So typically that was observed on Fridays. I am not really sure how that will change post-COVID. So, because we're able to work so effectively from home, I don't know if that will have a positive impact on that policy and if it will extend. But certainly we are looking forward to going back to a somewhat normal routine. So that would include, I suppose, the 1-day work from home, with maybe considerations to change that in the near future. Of course, I cannot guarantee that. But it depends on the situation. So if you have a particular situation where perhaps you have to go to school or you have other arrangements, of course, that's always something that you can chat to the manager about to see if a one-off cases can be arranged. But as an overarching policy, a 1-day work from home is where we're at for the moment post-COVID.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. I do have another question here since I don't see any others. Now, it just seems to, and this would be for either Phil, Xavier, or Rob, your recent transitions to a bit more of a sort of like modern architecture. Well, they've been recent either way. And I do know that the CBC will be broadcasting or has the rights to broadcast some Olympic material next year. Are you guys looking forward, or is the team, pardon me, looking forward to sort of like this new stack and having a challenge of dealing with the Olympics in 2021?
Yeah, I can start. Let me first start by saying one thing though. The IE11 question, just to sort of round that out. No, we don't support IE11, but there are CBC RSS feeds that are available for text-only news for people who do need to read the news and have incredibly archaic machines. So you can get CBC news, and important information on very old machines. It's just not something that we're heavily supporting in sort of an application experience capacity. Yeah, sorry, and to answer the question about the Olympics are really interesting. So for the Olympics, obviously there's a massive infrastructure requirement because there will be a very, very large number of people who are visiting the CBC. And also there are live stream components that will be added to the website and the applications, and we'll have to distribute those content. And they have very specific requirements around them. So it's exciting. It's particularly exciting because it's like an election, but over many days, and it's positive news, not negative news. So so much better than COVID. But in a way, you could say that from an infrastructure perspective, we've kind of already gone through the Olympics in terms of trying to provide a robust infrastructure that can deliver content to a very, very large audience. In that our news servers are our delivery of content has been hit very, very heavily in the last few months as a result of the news stream coming as a result of COVID.
Yeah, same with the CBC.ca. Thank you for clarifying the IE remarks. CBC.ca, the current version of it, has never seen the Olympics itself. We've always partnered with some partners that we have to help deliver the experience. So I was actually really looking forward to the Olympics this year because that would be the first time we'd actually be delivering it on our React platform that we have. So now we're looking forward to 2021, which is great. It gives us some more time to kind of polish up that experience and get some things in place. But yeah, it's really exciting.
And as a sports fanatic and a distance runner, I think it would be too, to be sort of like a developer, being able to sort of, potentially work on the Olympics and, having to sort of tweak the platform for all the traffic you're probably going to get, which is in all likelihood as well, a very international, with that being said. So I do have one more question here, and I think I may, may make this potentially the last one, but let's look at that. And the question is about backend application. Is there anything behind GraphQL? Or is it powered by multiple app services meshed together via Apollo Schema Federation?
So to answer the question at this point, yes, there is a single backend application. So it's only 3,000 lines of JS code, as we said. We don't use Apollo Schema Federation for now. For now, we still found a way to have only one schema. It's big, but it's still manageable. So we are thinking about schema stitching in the future, maybe yes. But for now, we have only one backend, but it doesn't have any database. It doesn't do any REST API processing. It will just delegate the request to other existing data sources, but it doesn't do any content management. This is a really small backend application for now. And if at some point it gets too big, yes, we'll split it and have multiple backend applications with a schema stitching. Yeah, at some point maybe. Good question.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that question, Mr. or Mrs. Anonymous. With that being said, I don't believe, we'll take this one last question, Lauren. You squeezed it in right on time. Who on your team decides what library is being used for the front end? Example right now, it's a React, but would you feel open to changing that in the future? Good question.
Yeah, I don't know who decides. I think that like teams are given the freedom to kind of pick the stack as long as it makes it's a good decision, and that it can be supported by the various developers that are at the CBC. So I guess we get to choose essentially. There's probably I'm a web architect at CBC, so maybe I don't know if I get to choose or if it's a conversation amongst the other architects as well at CBC, as well as our technical director as well. But in terms of right now it's React, and it seems like a very stable platform. It's been around longer than a lot of the other JS frameworks that have been around in the past. So hopefully it's not going anywhere anytime soon. But yeah, I think you have to be agile. You got to be able to be nimble and change if that's where the technology is going. If it eventually gets deprecated or stops being supported, that's not a good technological decision to have to support something that's no longer supported. So whether it changes in the future, it's hard to say. For now, it doesn't look like it's going anywhere, so we're sticking with it.
And it's doing the job that you needed to do. So, I mean, there's no issues there. So with that being said, I'm going to sort of like spark up my deck right here. I'm going to go here. I'm going to go share, and I'm going to show this. Boom. So first of all, we want to thank everyone from the CBC for spending some time with us from talking about, talking about their entire stack and how things are working at the CBC on an architecture level, software level, framework level, et cetera, performance level too. So definitely want to thank Rob, Xavier, Phil, and Medeea for spending the last hour and change with us. Obviously, as usual, we're going to follow this up with a email communication letting you know, actually, let me ask, will there be a possibility of sharing slides, Phil, Rob, who am I missing, Xavier, and even Medeea? Are slides shareable? Yes, no, thumbs up, thumbs down?
So I don't know that we're really sharing anything that's secret. Should be fine.
Okay, cool. I mean, we'll be able to follow that up in an email, but we like to sort of add links to the slides thereafter in our communications with the audience. So look out for that. And obviously, we're going to provide a link, a detailed link or links to the 2 roles that are available at the CBC for GraphQL developers. And obviously, if you're going to have any questions, you'll be able to let us know through the meetup via email and whatnot. Medeea, would you be sharing your email in the sort of like info packet for the role? Yep, no problem. 1 second.
So sorry, my dogs heard a noise in the hallway, so there's a little bit of a ruckus. Yes, definitely, I can share my email, and you can feel free to share it as well with the participants. They can reach out to me directly. They can also submit their application for the role via the online portal. I've actually just shared the link to the posting with all with all of the participants here as well, just in case anybody wants to check that out right away. And I'm laughing due to Jason's comment about who let my dogs out. Clearly, I don't know what's happened in the hallway, but they were very excited there, so I apologize. But if anyone has questions, feel free to let me know about the role.
Maybe the Amazon delivery guy showed up.
Could be.
So,
could very well be.
Exactly. So with that said, once again, thank you very much, everyone, for attending. I want to thank, again, the CBC for joining us. And obviously, I'd love to thank Ryan and the good people at Meetup for letting us use their portal, which includes the Q&A section so that we can separate our chitter-chatter and the strong questions. So with that being said, look out for an announcement with regards to the next Meetup. And I believe that's it. Oh yeah, and if you're on Twitter, make sure to follow us. Thank you very much, and have yourself a good evening.
Thanks, bye.
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 Goodbye. Goodbye. I'm gonna dance. Goodbye. Goodbye. Stop share. Are we still live? I do not know. I don't believe so. Do we stop? No, we're still recording. Is Ryan still here? Yes, he is.